just about everything has been said that needs to be said. This is a remarkably energetic day, at least for me. I'm president of an organization, the World Resource Institute, that deals with lots of partnerships. And most of them are only moderately effective at best. A few are game-changing. I honestly believe, and I haven't been paid to say this, that this one potentially could be one of the most influential partnerships that is in operation today. And one of the reasons for that is the attitude in this room. Not only did we identify some extremely concrete things that we need to work on, but we heard pretty strong statements from some. I mean, I thought what Bruce from Cargill said was just perfect. And then Anna picked it up from Yara, which is, we're part of loads of partnerships. We are not interested in any more talking shops. And my sense in this room is that nor are you, Sonny. You've got a busy job to do. And I love, Bruce, what you said, which is, look, I mean, I'm not wanting to get together and brag about my projects for smallholders. I mean, I can do that anytime. I want to get together with CEOs who actually realize that, quite frankly, however good their projects are on smallholders, it's not going to bring about the Sustainable Development Goals, which is to double real incomes of all smallholders. And if the government isn't part of that discussion, forget it. Governments around the world that you work in have massively dropped the ball on this issue, partly because it's too difficult and they on their own can't sort it. The multilateral development banks, and I know because I worked at one for a lot of my career at the World Bank, and I led the World Bank in East Asia and Indonesia and Vietnam, countries like that. Those banks have massively dropped the ball on the issue of smallholders. And I'll tell you this, as a country director, say, in Indonesia, I saw big companies come individually and sometimes as a group lobby the government for things that were basically going to add distortions. But I tell you something, if the CEOs in this room would come and sit down with governments and say, look, guys, we're willing to do this with you. You absolutely, and we absolutely need to work on smallholder yields. And by the way, there's a project that we could easily bring from the Asian Development Bank, helped by IFAD, or the World Bank. We could easily get serious money coming into this from the private sector too, if we work together. So I find this just incredibly encouraging. And it's not just smallholders, it's all the other issues we talked about. I mean, we've dropped the ball hugely on storage. You guys are doing a fantastic job on storage, I'm sure, within your own supply chains. But my goodness me, unless we address the issue of food loss and waste, we can't possibly claim that we are leaders. So I think there's an opportunity both for our own bottom lines, but also because we as a group want to actually make a real difference and bring in the SDGs. And what an incredible opportunity we have. And all of us in this room know that it's actually extremely complicated. I thought Alejandro's presentation was terrific, because he said what we sort of know, but we're not very good at articulating it, which is you go into a country, and many of these countries we work in, we know each individual risk, but the risks are all intertwined, and we don't know how to break through it. And so an individual company, however big they are, they have to sort of navigate like this through all these risks. But actually, if we were together, and we actually worked together, we just might be able to sort of untangle some of those knots. So to me, it's just an extremely exciting thing. I just want to agree with this gentleman down there that said, oh, he's left, who said, let's remember what this business is actually doing positively. I tried to start on that today, and I really do believe we need to end on that today. We are an industry, or you are an industry that has changed the world. The future is Yogi Berra, who was a famous baseball player, I guess, in the United States, and he had these wonderful quotes, one of which is, "The future ain't what it used to be." And he's also the guy that said, "I'd give my right arm to be ambidextrous." So if you see a fork in the road, take it. Those were some of his quotes. But the future ain't what it used to be. We are facing a very, very different future where expectations of us are much greater than before. And we are seeing around the world some industries that are actually getting it, and as a result, they're attracting the best people. I'd say the Consumer Goods Forum, for example. I mean, it wasn't long ago when Nestle was, basically had a dreadful reputation. My goodness me, it doesn't anymore. It doesn't anymore. Why? Because they've actually figured out how to do it. Compare that to the extractives industry, who are saying we simply cannot attract the best young people anymore. And consequently, our future is jeopardized. And I think for the agro-processing and agribusiness, I think the reputation that you have is not as good as your performance. So I would simply like to thank you. We should probably go back to sort of the first. We should ask Alicia Lin to come back here and tell us whether or not, now we're now in 2030, whether or not we've actually delivered. But I really do believe, Sunny, that this coalition could make just a massive difference. And certainly from my standpoint, we're keen to support you as much as we can.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
So I thought I'll just do 3 quick things. First is a couple of clarifications. The first is, this is not an Olam-sponsored or Olam-branded forum. The Global Agribusiness Alliance will be a neutral, independent forum consisting of shared interests coming together from across the agricultural sector, all parts of the value chain, stopping before it reaches the customer. And then we build linkages with our customer group, which is the Consumer Goods Forum, or it is with the Sustainable Agricultural Initiative that we just talked about, or the other one, which is Global Gap, or whether it is with SNV. I think the Global Agribusiness Alliance will look to build those relationships and interlinkages from the other stakeholder groups. And by combining with them, we hope to be able to create more of an impact. So that is the first clarification. The second clarification is that when Peter mentioned that I will be the interim chair, this is till we get the Global Agribusiness Alliance governing structures set up. And then after that, as Peter mentioned, we will have a proper process of making sure that there is a governance that is as high quality and transparent as possible. So that is the second clarification. Third is that this alliance, as I said, is a CEO-led voluntary alliance. But the important thing is the 36 companies that have joined and the many more that are in this room were considering joining is a very, very powerful group. And the big difference is that we are operators. We are not think tanks. We are not NGOs. We are not government. We are not policy makers. We are operators. So if you look at just the 36 companies, together we are farming close to 10 million hectares ourselves. Together, we are involved with 40 million outgrower farmers. And these outgrower farmers, their livelihoods have been transformed because this model of having a nucleus plantation and then having a very large smallholder or outgrower program is an extremely successful model. And we believe that we can scale that. And look at the companies that are there in this room evaluating whether they should be throwing the weight behind the Global Agribusiness Alliance. Cargill is a 150-year-old company, a $130 billion revenue company. ADM is a 100-year-old company, and it's about close to a $100 billion revenue company. Dreyfus is a 164-year-old company, about $60 billion in revenues, right? And Bunge is also a 197-year-old company with revenues of $60 billion. So that's just a small sample of people in this room who, if they combine with the 36 that are already there, and already through the course of the day, Tata International has confirmed to us that they want to join now. So they came in this morning, and they persuaded that they should be throwing their weight in. So I think this is not going to be a talk shop. We are practical guys. We want to get things done. And we are also not keen to have too much initiative overload. So if you're going to be a part of this, this has to make a real impact and difference. And although Arissa this morning was a fictional character, what struck most of us about her is that she inducted and imagined and unraveled a future in 2030 and went and staked a claim in that future by being really bold and by being willing to do business unusual. And the hope and expectation is that all of us in this room will put ourselves a bit on the line. There were several people who advised us not to take this initiative, that this is a huge reputational risk. You're really putting yourself out on a limb, right? And I'm sure that concern is shared by many of us in this room, but really, if we are not going to take the risk as leaders of this industry, who the hell is going to take this risk? And I'm reminded of Henry Ford in 1908 when he came up with the Model T. That was a time when movement from point A to point B, transportation was through horse-drawn buggies and carriages. Everybody else was looking at this transportation model and saying, how can we make this more efficient and better? How do we make sure that the dung excreted by the horses cleaned up? And how can we make this a more efficient process? And he looked at the same thing and said, no, this won't work going forward into the future. And transportation from point A to point B is going to be mechanized. And he came up with the T model, and he came up with the assembly line of production, and he came up with a bold vision that his vision was not to make another car. His vision was to democratize the automobile, to make it so cheap that every common man can afford it. And I think all of us have clearly agreed that the challenge of feeding a 9.6 or 9.7 billion population in a medium fertility scenario is that we have to grow food production by 70, or calorie production by 70%, but crop production for feed and food by 100%. It has taken all of mankind to get to this level of calorie and food production, all of mankind. And in the next 35 years, we are saying we're going to double it. It's an enormous and daunting challenge. But it can be done. And it can be done if all of us sort of combine together to get it done. My last role today is to really thank all of you for taking the risk of coming here and for listening. And for those of you who have already committed, a deep sense of gratitude, but the work is just beginning. So a lot of my team have worked extremely hard to put this together. As you can imagine, it's not easy to put something like this together. And I want to thank all of them for the enormous discretionary effort that they put in making this happen. I don't want to name all of them individually. But I hope that the rest of us here will make a commitment to working together, not only with the Global Agribusiness Alliance, but with the rest of the stakeholder groups that are present here to make a real difference. And finally, I want to thank all our speakers and panelists today. I think they didn't come here just because they were asked or invited to come here. They came here because they really feel passionately about this whole challenge, this whole developmental challenge that faces us. And they want to make a difference, and that's why they've all come here. So I want to thank Andrew Steer. I want to thank Peter Barker. I want to thank Peter White. I want to thank Jeremy. I want to thank Alejandro. I want to thank Pavan. I want to thank Hoon Kim. And I want to thank David Shukman. You saw that these people really believe in this. And I think their heartfelt messages should have struck a chord for all of us. I also want to thank Paul Pullman, who's going to be speaking later this evening. Do not miss what he's going to say. He has been at the forefront of getting businesses to put sustainability at the core of their businesses. And I want to thank Lord Malloch Brown also for throwing his weight behind this initiative, and David Nabarro, the special advisor to the UN Secretary General on the SDG goals, who also is passionately backing this. I want to wish you all a great trip back. A great tour of the Flower Dome, and see you later this evening for dinner. Thank you very much.
Well done.